Perfect. Hey everyone, welcome. We are incredibly excited to be launching our next webinar series. We are hosting a series in partnership with Pathfinder Product. We've done a couple of partnerships over the last couple of months, which has been great. I am really excited to dive even further into some of the topics that we've worked on with them and worked to discuss. So we're excited to have you all here. This next series is the Data as a Product Demystification series. If you have not joined one of our webinars before, I do have just a couple of slides that I want to get through in terms of just logistics and agenda and all of that good stuff. And then we will jump into why we're all here, which is Jen. So thanks, Jen, for joining us.
Hello.
So today's agenda, we're going to spend just a couple of moments talking about the series itself, Women in Analytics. I'll give you a couple of webinar tips and tricks, and then I will hand it over to Jen to take over the presentation. Along the way, if you have any questions, please throw those in the Q&A. We plan to get to all of those at the end, but as they pop into your brain, feel free to throw them in there, and we'll get through those once Jen is done. So like I mentioned, this new series is the Data as a Product Demystification series. We have been working with Pathfinder over the last couple of months on a study and all sorts of things. So we just wanted to take an opportunity to dive a little bit more into this topic. I won't read this whole thing, but I'll go through just some of it verbatim. The concept of treating data as a product has become not just a strategic advantage, but a necessity. Throughout this particular series, we'll uncover the fundamental principles of data as a product and explore how organizations can leverage this innovative paradigm to unlock the true potential of their data assets. So today we're going over kind of the basics. In the next two series, we'll dive a little bit more into some specific topics, which you will have an opportunity to share some input on towards the end. We host these webinars every other Wednesday. So if you are interested in joining us for future ones, you can stay in the loop via our Women in Analytics website. We've got a community platform, all sorts of things and ways that you can stay in the loop about some of these presentations we have coming up. And like I mentioned, if you have not been a part of a Women in Analytics series previously, I wanted to just take an opportunity to highlight our organization. We were founded in 2016 with a mission to increase visibility to women, non-binary, and gender fluid individuals, making an impact in the analytics space. And we do that a couple of different ways. This webinar series is one of them. We also host an annual Data Connect conference. We host a smaller Data Connect conference on the West Coast. We just launched a brand new Inspiring Paths series. So lots of different ways we're taking opportunities to showcase these folks that are making significant impacts in the space. And then again, if you want to stay involved in some of the other things we have going on and other events we have coming up, this QR code on the screen here will take you directly to our community platform so you can stay in the loop. Throughout the webinar, if you're running into any audio issues or any issues at all, feel free to throw those in the Q&A, or you can shoot us an email at info@womeninanalytics.com. I will be monitoring both of those things throughout the presentation. So if you run into any problems, let me know, and I will do my best to help you with those. And then again, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but we have this is the first of our next bi-weekly series. So we have 2 more Wednesdays coming up around the same exact topic. If you're interested in staying in the loop, we've got, again, social media, newsletter, Women in Analytics community platform, website, all sorts of ways that you can stay in the loop. And then lastly, I want to thank you, Pathfinder and Jen, for supporting the series. I'm not going to dive too much into Pathfinder. I know Jen has some information she would like to share. And with that being said, I would love to introduce everyone to Jen Tedrow. So thanks, Jen, for joining us. And I'm going to hand it right over to you.
Thanks for having me, Kelsey. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. All right. I'm hoping everybody can see that okay.
Looks good.
Awesome. Well, before I tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm talking, I'm going to start by just kind of going over what you're going to learn today. So I will start, telling a little bit about me and my background and why I'm talking to you about data as a product. And then we'll jump into the definition of data as a product, and also talk a little bit about some related topics as well. I found that data as a product has been kind of a muddy topic, and among certain people, it elicits some very strong thoughts. So I will preface this by saying that this is my perspective that has been formed from experience, many discussions, and primary research on the subject. This has helped me break down the explanation of data as a product through the lens of what I like to call the data as a product fundamentals. So we'll cover what those are and why they are important too. There should be, as Kelsey mentioned, plenty of time to take questions. We will, as Kelsey mentioned, be able to follow up if we're not able to get to everything. So as you go, please feel free to drop the questions in the chat. So I've told you what we're going to cover during a webinar. I also like to relay what I hope you take away from these sessions. My number one goal for this one is that people walk away feeling clear about what data as a product is and what it is not and why it's important. So hopefully we can get everybody there at the end of this session. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I have spent over a decade in product management. I've had a broad range of experience across lots of different industries. I've worked in company sizes from super tiny startups to Fortune 500 companies, large enterprises. And along my career journey, I've worked a lot with data product and data platform management as well. So some of the notable accomplishments I've had in that realm have been implementing a data mesh for a very large healthcare and IT enterprise. I supported internal business intelligence for a leading retailer, and I've also managed external TMS data products as well. I'm a former DaaP Inc., CoverMyMeds, and Updox employee prior to moving into consulting, and I've been with Pathfinder for the past 2 years. And really, as Kelsey mentioned, I've spent the last couple months really digging into understanding data as a product, and I'm super excited to share some of my learnings with you today. And as I mentioned, I work for Pathfinder Product, which is a boutique consultancy firm offering product management, coaching, and consulting services. And at Pathfinder, we're super passionate about product, and I'm really excited to announce today that we have taken a big step towards furthering our mission to help businesses find the path towards repeatable growth and unleash their greatness through product management. So today it has been publicly announced that Pathfinder Product has been acquired by Tedrow, which is another consulting firm. And so while the folks at Pathfinder are passionate problem solvers with a special focus on building the right thing, Tedrow's mission is to improve the way the world builds software with a special focus on building things right. So by combining forces, we're now able to offer holistic software and product management consulting services that span the entire product lifecycle. If you'd like to learn more about this strategic merger, please feel free to check out blog.testdouble.com for more details. There's also a forthcoming Columbus Business First article with interviews from the Pathfinder founder, Brett Buchanan, and the Tedrow CEO, Todd Kaufman. So more announcements coming soon there, but super excited, also really excited for the opportunity to offer fully loaded data product management and data engineering services. So looking forward to seeing how that develops and grows in partnership with Tedrow. So now that you know a little bit about me, where I'm coming from, my experience, let's dive into data as a product. So Kelsey mentioned that we've been partnering. We have been so thrilled at Pathfinder to partner with Women in Analytics and the Data Connect conference on a research initiative to better understand data as a product. We created a survey on the topic, and we're currently wrapping up a very comprehensive study that provides some super intriguing insights into the state of data as a product in the real world today. That study is going to be released soon, and the content from this webinar was definitely informed by our findings along the way. And when we first started working on the design for the survey that would inform this study, we started off by interviewing a lot of data experts to find out what their thoughts were on data as a product, what they would most want to learn about the subject. And we got a ton of great feedback. But one thing that was really consistent, actually, I think unanimous, that every person said was, you need to clarify what you mean by data as a product, because I talk to different people. I get, if I talk to 10 different people, I get 10 different definitions, or people think about it differently, or, someone has this perspective, somebody has that perspective. So if you're going to have a survey on it, you need to start by defining what you mean by data as a product. So we listened, and this is how we defined it. When we created the study, that was actually like the first thing that folks taking the survey would see is, when we say data as a product, this is what we mean. I recognize this is a bit of a lengthy definition, but as I noted before, this topic can be a bit muddy. For me, the key is the primary purpose of data as a product is to maximize its utility. And so when talking about data as a product with other data experts, the way I explain it is that it's very similar to traditional product managers looking to deliver the most value from their products. Data as a product is applying a product management mindset to data. And as with traditional product management, there's really no one-size-fits-all approach, but there are some general guidelines and best practices that tend to hold true for all product managers. And we're going to touch on some of those that we've uncovered for data as a product as we progress through this webinar. And in some of those discussions that I've had with folks about data as a product, one of the main points of confusion, or even a point of contention, has been around confusing data as a product with data products. Very similar terms, definitely related, but I don't see them as synonymous. However, a lot of folks do, and I've heard different reasons for this. Some even say, well, it's just easier to say that they're the same thing. I definitely see them as distinct, mainly because we view data as a product as the process of applying product thinking to data to ensure that it's fit for its intended use, and a data product as the end result of doing so. So this is my hot take, but honestly, the perspective that data products being the same as a data product is kind of wild to me, because that feels kind of the same as saying that a product is the same thing as product management. It's mindset and associated processes versus the output that can be leveraged by a user. So to me, those are very distinct concepts. To further muddy the waters, I also get asked, well, what about data assets? So the way I look at it is data assets are the raw materials. An example could be a company's proprietary product or user data that's just kind of sitting in a database. And data as a product, as we've stated, is that process of applying product mindset to data. This can involve many different processes, and it depends on your data strategy, your goals, your company situation. We're going to dive into more of what these processes entail shortly, since there is really, truly a lot to unpack there. And a data product, those are the actual consumable outputs that are made available to users. And ideally, just like with software, data products are thoughtfully delivered and managed, leveraging data as a product processes. Data products can range from dashboards to reports to machine learning models. There's all kinds of examples of different data products, but it's really the output. So basically, leveraging data as a product processes, you turn data assets into consumable data products. And I think for me, it's really helpful if I kind of tell a story or walk through an example that kind of puts all of these concepts together in a way that hopefully it makes it easier to understand. So we're going to talk about a fake company and how they might go about leveraging data as a product to deliver a data product. So let's just say that there's a company called Healthy Track, and they sell wearable devices. And they've been collecting just a ton of health data over the years through their wearable devices. This data includes things like steps taken, heart rate, sleep patterns, other wellness indicators. And they realized this data is valuable. It's a great data asset, but it's not being fully leveraged to the best of its ability. So they decide to adopt a data as a product approach to transform those data assets into data products that can provide more value to its users and open up a whole new revenue stream for the company. So what do? First, they start by auditing their existing data assets to understand what they have, the quality of the data, and potential privacy concerns. They gather all the historical health metrics, user demographic information, and engagement data from their apps. Next, in step 2, they kind of think about shifting their mindset. They begin treating their data not just as a byproduct of their devices, which is their main source, has traditionally been their main source of revenue, is selling these wearables, but as a standalone product that requires a dedicated team, a business plan, and a user-centric development approach. And what they do is they establish a cross-functional team that includes data scientists, product managers, legal advisors, and user experience designers to manage this initiative. And next, in step 3, they conceptualize a new data product. And they think, what would be great would be a personalized health dashboard that not only tracks your daily activities, but also provides insights and recommendations for improving the user's health. They define the product scope, the user interface, the algorithms needed for personalized insights, and the data pipelines that will feed into the dashboard. Next, in stage 4, because of course it's health data, they realize that before they can develop the product, they have to make sure that data use complies with regulations like GDPR and HIPAA. They implement the appropriate data governance policies to protect user privacy and establish transparent user or data usage practices. In the next phase, stage 5, they're developing the data product. They curate the data assets, cleanse and structure the data for use, and develop the algorithms that can detect health patterns and provide personalized recommendations. They create beta versions of the health dashboard and test it with a group of users. And then, of course, the next phase, they're going to iterate, and they're going to iterate based on user feedback, just like, with a software product. They're going to refine the features and improve the data models to enhance accuracy. They're also going to ensure that the dashboard interfaces seamlessly with their existing Healthy Track app to provide a unified user experience. And in stage 7, they're going to, after successfully testing and iterating, they're going to launch that health dashboard. They market it as a premium feature within their app, and they emphasize the personalized insights derived from their advanced data analysis as a value add, and they're able to tap a new revenue stream in so doing. And then, of course, after launch, you have to continue to monitor the usage, the performance of the health dashboard, treating it as a living product that needs to evolve with user needs and feedback, and then take that data and continuously improve it, adding new features, refining the algorithms as needed. And so by treating data as a product, Healthy Track was able to transform their existing data assets into a valuable data product that not only improved user engagement and health outcomes, but also created a whole new value proposition for their customers and opened up an entirely new revenue stream. So this narrative illustrates kind of the journey from recognizing the potential of data assets to delivering a data product that meets customer needs, aligns with business goals. I really hope this helps put those concepts into a helpful context. And now, hopefully, that we have a good understanding of the general concepts of data as a product, data products, and data assets. Let's start unpacking those fundamentals of data as a product, because obviously, not every company is ready to dive right into a data as a product mindset, which is, I think, another reason why its distinction is very important. So really, as we worked on the study and had just like so many conversations on this topic, one thing that became apparent as I advocated for why data as a product is an important concept in and of itself is because it's not just a given that all organizations are optimized to support creating valuable data products, like in the example we just kind of walked through. Just like organizations have varying levels of product management maturity that impact their ability to deliver software that delights users and provides amazing value to the business, the same is true for data. There are varying levels of data maturity and understanding across organizations. And just like many organizations went through or are going through agile and product management transformations, I think there needs to be a similar, it's different, but a similar shift to a data as a product mindset for organizations to maximize the potential of their data assets. So these fundamentals represent the areas of focus needed for organizations to adopt a data as a product mindset. And they are mentality, enablers, and tactics. They do not represent a linear process, and they're really all equally, in my mind, important. We're going to dive into each one and kind of break it down. But first, I just want to stress, just like with software product management, there's no one size fits all approach. Data product management, just like software product management, takes a lot of critical thinking and the ability to process many different inputs to make informed decisions that are right for your business, your goals, your team, your situation. It's a very nuanced craft. And that being said, based on experience and research, these fundamentals are all critical to success in varying ways. And so let's just kind of jump right in and start talking about the first one. We'll start with mentality. So mentality includes, first and foremost, the organizational awareness of the importance of data, not thinking of data as an afterthought, but actively considering how data plays a role in achieving not just data goals, but company level goals. But having specific data-driven goals is critical as well, which helps if you have defined use cases for data. This can range from how data can support existing goals around revenue, growth, or customer retention as examples, or specific use cases for leveraging data assets like we walked through in the example. Mentality is so critical because depending on the organization, and I fully recognize this can vary if you're in a large enterprise or if you're in a very small organization, it's gonna be very different. But decision makers sometimes can be somewhat removed from data teams who are actually executing. So having at least one data advocate and strategist at like a senior or executive level is really essential. The role of chief data officer is becoming a lot more common, but really we're seeing that mainly more in larger enterprises and in smaller orgs. Just having a senior leader, maybe it's somebody in product or maybe it's somebody in IT, but who is a data advocate, and just really making sure that data is at the forefront of planning and goal setting is really, really important. And I'm sure some of you on this call can probably relate to data being a little bit of an afterthought with like frantic last minute requests coming in, scrambling to make a solution work, and dealing with kind of like the effects of not having, great data quality and having to jump through hoops just to get a solution out the door very quickly. And honestly, helping to avoid those types of situations really starts with having the right mentality in place and having, a real understanding of what it takes to treat data as a product and leverage it in the right strategic way for maximizing its value. And then next is what we call enablers. And this is really just ensuring the appropriate organizational structure and culture to support achieving valuable outcomes with data. And again, I want to stress, there really is no one size fits all approach here. I've personally seen many differing data team structures work well, but there are always things to be aware of. Centralized data teams may be at risk of being siloed or having work kind of thrown over the wall to them. Decentralized data teams may struggle if there's no one person thinking holistically about data strategy. Hybrid teams where there's a central data team reporting structure, but folks are embedded on different product teams, that can be great, but they can struggle with conflicting direction from their business stakeholders and data leaders if there isn't alignment at that top level. That's why regardless of the data team structure, because any one of those can work depending on, your organization and goals and structure, fostering collaboration and communication is so, so important. If you're going to treat data like a product, you need to deeply understand it, which means data scientists, analysts, and engineers should be part of creating a data strategy, aligning to company goals, to execute effectively and should be able to work directly with their business partners to promote data literacy so everybody can make better decisions. And strategic investment in data, that's another big one. We found a lot of interesting insights on this in the study. But this is an area where we've seen challenges where data team members are so far removed from decision makers. And if a company has lofty data-driven goals, they should be prepared to invest in the data team and the necessary resources appropriately to set them up for success. And in order to do so, they really need to understand what their needs are and why they have those needs and how to best support them. So that's the enablers. And then there's the tactics. And tactics are where the rubber really meets the road. And these are examples of tactics. These can really vary depending on your goals, but generally, in order to turn data assets into valuable data products, they need to be well understood, secure, trustworthy, discoverable, and high quality. Things that influence which tactics are appropriate are things like industry regulations, the end user needs, and the goals of the data product. This certainly isn't an exhaustive list, but it's a general representation of the most common tactics employed to increase the value of data. We could honestly do a whole webinar digging into each one of these and generally on data product lifecycle management. But generally, there needs to be tactics in place in order to make sure that those data assets that are sitting in a database are something that the right folks can use effectively, leverage effectively. They can trust them. They're secured appropriately according to your industry and your standards, and that they're well understood. And that often means bridging a gap between business subject matter experts and data team too. So there's a lot to unpack there, but just generally, tactics are super important. So we've covered mentality, which is recognizing the importance and potential value of data, just not just for its own sake, but also how it helps an organization succeed overall. Enablers, which are ensuring cultural support and investment, and tactics, which kind of put it all into action. And I do want to stress again that this is not a linear process. It's definitely possible to be really strong in one or more of these areas and be struggling in another, or vice versa, or to be working on each area in some way, shape, or form simultaneously. I do think that the stronger you are in all of these areas, the more likely you are going to have success. But I've seen instances where scrappy teams started with tactics and built up new trust in data and its usability and made it more accessible and usable, which led to more data leadership advocacy because it opened up executives' eyes to the possibilities that they hadn't seen before. And honestly, if you're listening to this and thinking some of this seems really daunting because there are elements of organizational change management in here, I'm here to tell you, because I've been there too, it is possible to start small, get some highly visible and valuable wins, and make meaningful iterative process in each area. We could do, again, another whole thing we could unpack is, trying to articulate the ROI of data, which can be a difficult thing to do, but it is possible. And again, taking a product mindset really helps with untangling some of that difficult and messy process. So I do recommend, if you feel overwhelmed, the best thing to do is to really prioritize what you would be able to meaningfully impact that would be highly visible and valuable, and start there and think about what is most important to build on from gaining those wins and making them visible, in order to kind of just start making steps in the right direction. I don't think this is a situation where you go to 0 to 100 very quickly. I think that this is all part of a process, and as organizations become more data driven, I think that we're all going to be working to continuously improve for quite a while. So let's go ahead and talk through some key takeaways. Data as a product is a mindset that turns data assets, which are the raw materials, into data products, which are the consumable outputs. And to successfully leverage data as a product, an organization must have organizational awareness of the importance of data, cultivate organizational structures to promote collaboration and invest appropriately in data teams and resources, and create processes to make data discoverable, trustworthy, secure, understandable, and usable. And again, the data as a product fundamentals, not a linear process. They're all important, and how they're implemented, again, may vary. And this is where a product lens is really critical to help prioritize where to start and what is most critical to work on for a given team, organization, industry situation. So I know we covered kind of a lot. We wanted to hold some time for questions. We also wanted to give the opportunity to hear from you about what you would most like to learn about next. We had a lot of ideas for webinars for this data as a product demystification series, and we thought, let's ask the audience what they would be most interested in learning more. So Kelsey is going to flash a poll up here. Please vote. What would you like to hear more about in the next episode? So please feel free to vote, and then while you're voting, we can open it up for some questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jen. Yeah. So if you haven't had an opportunity to vote already in the poll, please do so. I see a lot of things coming in, so that's great. Thank you, everybody. I'll leave it up for just another minute or two. And then once you've voted, if you have questions for Jen, please put those in the Q&A. We've got a couple of things that have come through already. So I'll dive in and just leave this poll up. So the first one, actually the first two are very related. How do you get senior leaders to support the investment in data as a product? And more specifically, what are the benefits of data as a product that you found resonate most with senior leaders?
Yeah, two amazing questions. I think these are things that we're unpacking in the study. So without giving away too much from what's forthcoming, some of the things that we've learned is that there is a big divide between the decision makers and the members of the data team. We've seen that fairly consistently. So I think there needs to be an effort to, I guess, manage up a little bit and kind of help bridge the divide. I think one thing we would like to do with the study is to make leaders a little bit aware that there is a disconnect. So hopefully they do their part and reach across the aisle as well to better understand, the folks that are executing in the day-to-day and what their struggles and their needs are, because the perspectives are different, the needs are different. There's a communication gap that needs to be bridged. That was actually, I think, one of the general themes of one of the following webinars that we had proposed is about bridging the gap for communicating between data decision makers and data team members. So, but I think, when you are a team member, it's not a bad idea to learn some strategies for managing up, cultivating relationships with leaders, finding a mentor, and creating opportunities to be able to share your perspective in a constructive way. For me, the way I've approached that in the past is very much from a kind of like what's in it for you perspective, because that tends to resonate more with leaders. They really, when you go to them with a lot of problems, I feel like it feels less actionable than you're like, hey, I have thoughts on a solution and how we can work together to get there. So kind of thinking it from how can I make it easy for them to help me perspective has just, again, from my personal experience, been something that has worked really well in the past for me. But seeking out the opportunity, hopefully you have a culture that encourages folks to connect and get to know each other even outside of reporting lines. But building those relationships, sharing perspectives, because I think it's also important for data team members to also understand the perspective of senior leaders and why they're coming from a different perspective than they are as well. The better we understand each other's perspectives, I think the better we are able to meet in the middle. So I hope that that's helpful. And I think there was a value question there too. I think that can be difficult. That is something that I've focused on in the past. One thing that I've learned just from my experience in data product management roles is that often decision makers really are so unaware of what it takes to treat data as a product. And in some cases, not all, but in some cases, they kind of don't care. They just want results. So I think as much as you can draw a line to this need will get you this end result, which will result in, this revenue growth or this new revenue line, is really what is going to move the needle. Leaders tend to be very like action oriented, outcome oriented. And that's a lens that traditional product managers have learned to work with when interfacing with senior leaders, is to translate things into value statements. And so I think it's one of the processes, kind of like reframing, like looking at it as an investment, but you have to spell out what the investment is and why. So I hope that's helpful.
Great, thank you. And this kind of dives into another question that we've received. Can you elaborate a little more on how you can show ROI on data as a product? And do you have any examples of success that you've come across during your time working with data as a product?
Yeah, definitely. I will say this effort was made a little bit easier by having a great leadership champion behind it. So that definitely makes it a lot easier. And in the case, in my personal experience, that immediately came to mind, it did entail a lot of organizational change as far as embedding more data folks, or providing more self-service data capabilities to data teams, instead of having like a strictly like centralized data team that became kind of a bottleneck. So basically what you have to think about is straight ROI, cost versus benefit, is not always a straight line for data ROI. Sometimes it's more about trade-offs. And so it's a little bit more nuanced. So we had to kind of draw parallels for this is the current state. These are the challenges in the current state. The current state we were operating in, there were a lot of data silos. There was a really huge lack of understanding of what the entire data footprint and capabilities were. There was the inability to link and aggregate data, and just inability to really even understand what and how data could be leveraged, because there was not a good understanding of data usage agreements. So people were so scared they would just default to the least use policy instead of sharing more widely, which could have led to more data product opportunities. So the trade-off was, if we invest in data as a product, this is what you will get. We will be able to remove the data silos. We will be able to have better data literacy and understanding, and better, we will be better able to strategize as an organization for what we can be able to do with our data assets, because we're going to have an understanding of them. If we don't make that investment, these are opportunities that we're missing out on. And so it's less about dollars and cents, though we were able to do a little bit of that, because we actually again, taking a data product management approach, we actually interviewed a lot of the different stakeholders and found that data scientists were spending like 60% of their time trying to wrangle data in order to make it usable. And so we did some quick math on like, hey, if we are able to reduce that even by half, then we're going to improve speed to market and be able to accelerate the delivery of data products, and also improve the job satisfaction of those data scientists, because frankly, they did not want to spend 60% of their time wrangling crappy data. So those were a couple approaches that I've taken in the past. I hope that's helpful.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Sorry, we've got a lot of things coming in. So as much as I would like to continue the conversation, we've got a couple more things to get through. So when going back to the tactics that you shared, what cadence would you recommend in implementing those? Would you recommend, trying to do them all side by side, one at a time? What's the best approach when it comes to implementing those tactics?
I don't know if there's like, again, like one best approach. I know for me, I've spent a lot of time in healthcare IT. So that really drove our approach to tactics more than anything, just because there were regulations, right? So I mentioned the challenge with understanding data usage agreements, really untangling that and making that clear and embedding that into the code was huge, because once we were able to do that, it was less like, I don't know if I can use the data, so we're going to just like only use it for what we know we can in this one team. We were able to find instances where there were, data sets that had much wider usage. And we were able to put access controls in place that aligned to the data usage agreements that were fully compliant, but opened up the ability to use the data in a wider manner that was compliant, which was huge. So that was aligned to the business goals and also with regulations, which were very important for obviously healthcare. And then for other companies, I've seen where there's such a lack of understanding of the data, again, like with the data scientists spending so much time just like trying to track people down to understand what the data is just so they can do their job. Investing in like governance and data cataloging and, putting the right documentation and business context around data, that might be the most important place to start if you're really struggling with that area. And I've seen another instance where there was such poor data quality that there was missing data for a month, and there were no alerting practices in place, and it caused a major issue. So in any one of those instances, those could have been the priority. Those could have been attacked in parallel. I think really, again, that's part of like taking that product approach, that lens, and saying, what's most important? What are our goals? What's the biggest pain point? Who's struggling? How impactful is that struggle? And what resources do we have available right now? Because if you don't have a data catalog, assessing a data catalog can be really big. Is there a lighter way to approach that? I think it's just about kind of putting on that product management hat and prioritizing strategically and attacking it accordingly, and recognizing it's going to be an iterative process probably.
That's great. Thank you. We have time for definitely one more, maybe two more questions. I do want to reiterate that if we don't get through all of these today, we will send out a follow-up email after the fact answering the rest of the questions. So we'll get back to the folks who haven't had their questions answered yet. So the next one is, initially data as a product companies monetized just data. Now companies are offering a lot of analytics, machine learning building capabilities on data as a product platforms. Can you talk a little bit more about how data as a product space is evolving?
Yeah, honestly, I think the reason data as a product is becoming like such a hot topic is because of machine learning and AI. I think that's a huge driver for it. I think companies are like, ooh, I want to do machine learning. Like that sounds amazing. And they have this proprietary data and they want to train these models. And they're realizing, oh my gosh, my data is crap. I can't use this to train a model. How do we get our data in a space where it's valuable and usable, and we're able to do that? And they're realizing, oh, well, we need to treat our data as a product and make sure that it's well understood. We can use it appropriately, and that people understand it, and that it's ready for AI and ML. So honestly, I do think that that's probably been, if not the biggest, then one of the biggest drivers for this shift in mindset and why people are talking about it, honestly.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. Everything that's happening right now leads to that. So awesome. So we are officially out of time. I feel like it goes by so quickly. Thank you, Jen, for participating today. We'll make sure to gather the leftover questions that we have and grab answers for those unanswered questions, and we will include them in a follow-up email. Before we go, Jen, if folks are interested in connecting more with you around data as a product, where is the best place to find you?
Yeah, definitely. So, for folks interested in Pathfinder and what we offer, there's the ability to schedule a consult with us through Pathfinder's website. But honestly, like if you're interested, like feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. So if we're not connected, search me. I'm just Jen Tedrow on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect. I love to talk data. So feel free to shoot me a message.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks again, Jen. I appreciate your time, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Wednesday.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Kelsey.
Yep.